Hey everybody, welcome to Culinary Characters Unlocked. I'm David Page. On this episode, a Seattle chef whose love of local seafood stretches back to childhood, when her father would take her salmon fishing. Now she's built a group of restaurants that's been called an accidental empire, where she features plenty of what the Pacific Northwest has to offer. Here's Renee Erickson. Chef, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
Great, David. How are you?
I'm delightful, and looking at your remarkable home kitchen behind you, I'm tremendously envious.
It's fun. It's real sweet and tidy. It's a little 1907 house that we have had for, I've been here almost 25 years, so we've cooked a lot of food in this kitchen.
I read an article about you that was titled Renee Erickson's Accidental Empire.
Oh, yeah. It's a weird.
You have an accidental empire?
I don't think that's possible, but
What did they mean?
if you back up to when I was in college, I had no idea I wanted to cook. I'm sure there are people that wake up one day and decide they're going to open 10 restaurants. That was not my plan, but I did do it, so I don't know how accidental it was. It took a long time. I've been doing it for almost 30 years now.
Well, the story as recounted in something I read is that you open one place and you are happily cooking at your own place, and then you met a guy who was trying to develop other restaurants, and you struck some kind of a deal. Either you wrote it on a napkin or a menu, and next thing you know, off you go.
Yeah, he is Chad Dale, my business partner still. He was developing a building in Ballard, looking for tenants, essentially, as one does, and asked me to consider opening a restaurant. You know, it wasn't a planned thing. I had thought about opening a oyster bar for a while, and so it was kicking around in my head, but I wasn't actively pursuing it. And it's true, I did have Boat Street, and I was happy.
Boat Street was your first restaurant?
Yeah, Boat Street Cafe, yeah. At that point, I had it for 12 years, and I was thinking about things, but it wasn't, I didn't have an agenda set or a plan in place.
Fast forward, you've bought and sold a bunch of restaurants, and now you have what? 10, is it?
Mm-hmm. We have 10 places. Yeah, 3 of them have multiple concepts next to each other.
What kind of foods? I mean, it covers the whole gamut, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's very seafood centric. We have both kind of French and Italian influences in most of the locations, I would say.
Well, you have a steakhouse too, right?
Yeah, which is kind of combo Parisian bistro and American steakhouse.
And whatever you choose to serve comes, I assume, to some extent from your own passions for individual foods. Let me start by asking you, can you name a dish that's had particular meaning for you?
I think it's changed a lot, but in general, it was just always really simple seafood. So I grew up eating half of salmons roasted with mayonnaise on them and lemons. And it's actually something that I kind of ignored for most of my cooking career because it didn't seem, good enough or interesting enough or whatever. And then I realized one day, I was like, that's so stupid. It's not only super delicious, but easy, and also very much something that everyone in the Pacific Northwest has done most of their youth and growing up in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And that, I think, is something that I find very nostalgic.
Is that something your mom would make?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not from Seattle, so I'll be stereotypical. Like from Pike Street Market?
No. So when I was a kid, we would fish.
Well, you weren't catching salmon.
Yeah, we were.
Hold on, pardon me. You can fish and catch salmon?
You can.
Well, I guess I'm being dumb. Okay.
No, I mean, so the whole area here, the water it's an inland sea, so it's called the Salish Sea, and there's salmon that swim all over, and there's seasons for it, and there's different salmon runs, and in the summer, we would catch a lot of fish and eat a ton of salmon.
Pardon my stupidity.
No,
I know you're
okay.
going someplace I've never heard of. How do you salmon fish? Are you in a boat?
I'm in a boat. When we were kids, we had a little aluminum boat with a little 3-horsepower motor. You can troll for salmon, so you basically have the motor at the lowest speed and have your line in the water. And depending on what you're trying to fish for, you have different gear, and you just hang out and wait till you get a bite and you reel it in.
So was it you in the boat with your mom or your dad?
With my dad, for the most part, my dad and my brother. Yeah. It's really fun.
And how big was the salmon when you caught it?
It depends on what you're catching. I mean, you could catch a Chinook salmon that would be 30 pounds, which is a huge fish. For now, they used to be 100 pounds.
Well, how old were you when you were doing that?
I think I started to go regularly when I was like 8 or 9. We would go out early and fish, and you'd get home and have salmon, which was amazing.
Who had to clean it?
We all did. I actually really loved it. It was sort of a weird thing of mine.
As a young girl, you enjoyed gutting fish.
I did. My dad would fillet it and I would clean out the middle.
And then mom would cook?
Yeah, or we would barbecue. My mom or my dad would put it on the grill too.
Is there a particular recipe?
It would be the salmon with the mayonnaise for the most part. You would lay the side of fish on foil and cover it in mayonnaise and put it on the grill and cover it, and it would broil basically in there, or roast and broil. So that was kind of the thing.
Was food a big deal in your family?
Yeah. I mean, I think I didn't really get it when I was a kid, but looking back, my dad was a landscaper. And so we had a lot of fruit trees and things on our property, and we had a garden always. My mom was actually a really great gardener of vegetables. And so we would have like amazing beans and tomatoes and strawberries and peas and all the things that one would have, which was really special. It was normal to me because it's what we had. But looking back on being able to go out and harvest, a big bowl of string beans is pretty fantastic. And then, of course, in the summer, we would get to go fishing, but we also crabbed a lot. We would go out and get Dungeness crab. And that was probably the most exciting and what we ate the most of because it was a much easier thing to get. So we would eat crab cakes and crab salad and crab melts and crab everything. And that was actually the one thing as a kid that I got really tired of was Dungeness crab, which now is just such an awful thing to say out loud because it's so fantastic.
When I was working overseas as a journalist, I actually found myself in a situation once in Moscow where the restaurant had nothing. And we ended up basically eating caviar for a week.
Oh my God.
By the end of the week, incredibly enough, I was tired of caviar. So stuff happens.
Totally.
Was there a lot of cooking in the house? Was it good food?
It was pretty regular food. I mean, my mom she was a really great baker. She made amazing pies. We would go berry picking and make blackberry pie or strawberry pie or raspberry pie, apple pie, all the things. But like kind of normal stuff too, like pot roast.
The all-American pot roast.
Yeah, exactly. Which, not so bad. And she did can a lot of things.
It was only a few years ago that I figured out the canning means putting stuff in jars.
Right, I know.
But you didn't, when you went to college, it's not like you wanted to be in the food biz. Did you have the typical high school restaurant job where you were a waitress or something?
I was in college here in Seattle, so I had a coffee job as well as a restaurant job. I would work before school and after school. So that's sort of how I got into the restaurants was I worked at Boat Street Cafe.
The first place you ended up owning?
Yeah, I ended up buying it and I loved it. Restaurants are crazy and fun and lively.
Okay, so you go there, you have no culinary training.
No.
Did you go there to cook or to wait tables?
A woman that I went to junior high and high school with had got a job there as a manager. I stopped in one day because I thought it was a cute spot. I left my resume, which consisted of essentially my landline phone number and my address, like nothing essentially.
And the fact that you were studying for a fine arts degree?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She called me and was just like, Renee, it's Seema. So I went down and immediately just started working.
As a waitress?
Yeah. I did that for a little while and realized that I was too young and didn't know what I was doing. Didn't really have the sophistication or the comfort, the ease around, being able to talk about wine and do all of that. And so I asked if I could bake before school. I was like, I can follow a recipe and I can do this. And I still cook this way. It's not highly technical cooking. It's just kind of nuanced around paying attention. And
although baking, the old saw is baking's a science, cooking's an art.
Yeah.
So you do have to be precise.
Yeah, which I think means a good recipe and paying attention to it. I wasn't creating these things. I was just following directions. And that, I loved it. It was really enjoyable. And so I just kept learning more. And as restaurants happen, people don't show up for work. And there was opportunity for me to learn how to make all the sandwiches at lunch. And, slowly just that kind of evolved into me doing more and more cooking.
We'll be right back. Is this a fine dining spot?
It was a really simple bistro. Susan, who started it, was from Maine originally. So it had kind of a really East Coast kind of aesthetic as well as France. Her family was from France as well. It was lovely, really simple and focused and had a really nice freshness to it that I think was at that time really uncommon. Like there weren't a lot of European influenced tiny restaurants in Seattle. There was kind of more bigger restaurants that were either like super fine dining or more like fish and chip shops and things like that.
Okay, so you go there, you decide you're too unsophisticated to serve.
Totally.
You've never cooked before, so you start baking. How did you become a cook and then I guess a chef? And then you ended up owning the place. Tell me the story. What happened?
Well, there was a woman who was the main cook for a couple of years that I was there. And so I started cooking with her. And Susan, she was a professional woman and worked in Tacoma.
Susan Kaplan, the founder.
Exactly. Yeah. So she would be driving back, which is like an hour drive after her day of work to come to the restaurant. And she would cook as well. And so there was just room to fill in. And so I just kept learning and doing more and more. And it's not that you can't do this now. I just think it was so much a simpler time as far as food goes. And I think this restaurant kind of did as much as it knew it could do as far as like ingredients and dishes and things like that. So it wasn't trying to be something that it wasn't or couldn't be. And I think that made it so that there were lots of things that I could learn and become good at. So I just kept doing it. And I think, by the time I bought it, so I had left, I went to Europe.
Oh, just throw that in. You left and went to Europe to do what?
I finished my last semester in college, or second to last semester in college, in Rome. And so I went to school at the School of Art in Rome with UW. They own part of a building in Campo dei Fiori in the center of Rome. And so I went there for 5 months thinking that I was going to become an art teacher, essentially.
Did you do a fair amount of eating in Rome?
Exactly. I was just blown away by my experience there as a eater and just the kind of, the first time you go to Europe and see how much more food focused it is, especially compared to what I grew up knowing, and how evolved and amazing, everything was.
And yet simple.
Yeah. I mean, just so brilliant. So I came back and I essentially wanted to just go back to Italy, is what I wanted to do. I went back to work at Boat Street. That's when Susan was sort of trying to get me to buy it. And I was just like, nope, I'm too young.
How old were you?
I was probably 23, I would say, at that time. And so I got my ESL certificate to get a job teaching English. English is a second language.
Oh, so you were going to go to Italy and teach English?
I was going to go anywhere. I didn't care. But yeah, Italy was the hope. So I headed to Europe and I ended up getting one job, which was great. It was in the Netherlands. This was like 4 months into my trip. So I had been traveling.
So you're eating all over Europe at this point.
Yeah. My job was actually great. I got hired as an English teacher at this camp right outside The Hague. So it was kids from all over the world, which was really wild.
Because The Hague would have diplomats. And so you've got families from all over the...
Yeah, exactly. I lived in a little seaside village, this tiny village that was amazing. And my apartment was the pitch in the roof was where I slept. I could wake up in the morning and there was like a hatch on the roof that was like a window hatch that I could open up and stand up in. That was the only place I could stand up and look out at the sea.
Oh.
And it was fabulous.
Is there a Dutch cuisine that's enjoyable? I mean, when I lived in Europe, I made bad jokes about Dutch cuisine not being wonderful. Is it?
I would say it had a better reputation than like British food. And I think obviously like everywhere in the world, food is phenomenal, I would say now. We just have much more awareness to history and tradition and showcasing our best foods if we can. So I was there and then eventually ran out of money / got homesick a little and came home. And at that point, I was still not planning on owning a restaurant. I had applied to go back to Europe. I was hoping to get into the Tyler School of Art, which is at Temple University, because they have a program in Rome. I ended up deciding to buy Boat Street before I found out that I did not get into Tyler. So I made the right choice.
So you buy a restaurant at the age of, I'm guessing, 24 now? 25?
25, yeah.
How'd you get financing?
Susan, paid $40,000 for it. My parents loaned me $10,000 and then I worked it all fell off. I paid my parents back. I lived at home with my parents. My godfather, who was somebody that I also grew up fishing with, sold me his beat up truck for $1. I was broke when I got back from Europe, obviously.
And you're running a staff?
It was simpler. Everything was easier back then.
Okay, so you were cooking yourself.
Yeah, I cooked lunch and dinner and brunch. We were closed on Monday, and then Tuesday was just lunch, and then Wednesday through Saturday was lunch and dinner, and then Sunday was brunch.
You clearly must have gotten excellent reviews because all of a sudden some guy's walking into your place saying, hey, open another place with me.
That was like literally 10 years later. Between those times, like the first restaurant I had to close and move because we lost our lease, the original Boat Street location, which was on Boat Street.
So then you moved it and became Boat Street, not on Boat Street.
Correct.
Which is like the 2nd Avenue Deli in New York is now on 3rd Avenue.
There we go. Yeah.
What cooking philosophy? I mean, is this where your cooking philosophy, nothing ever settles? I understand it changes eternally, but after 10 years of owning and cooking at this place, what was your cooking philosophy? What is it you were trying to do?
I would say for the first 5 years of owning the restaurant, all I was trying to do was just not screw up what was made already. I didn't really experiment. I didn't really think of new. I mean, I did a tiny bit without really knowing it, but I didn't have a big plan to like make it mine or do, like my ego wasn't really wrapped up in changing it or anything. It was mostly like, how do I pay myself?
You're still running a bistro.
Yeah, exactly.
Steak frites and onion soup?
No, I have a photo somewhere of the kitchen, but it was really bootstrapped. The original stove that I learned on was electric. I think the next stove was gas, but had a door that would fall off.
But like one of the reviewers I read said, and I quote of you, she made one hell of a pork chop.
I still do. It's one of my favorite things. Yeah, so the pork chop was something that became mine. At the original Boat Street, it was much more kind of cafe lunch and then, kind of simple dinner fare. And then at the second Boat Street, that's when I had a bigger staff.
And you were serving like a pork chop, what else?
A steak. We didn't have a fryer, so we had no frites. We did roasted potatoes with everything. We made crab cakes, which were outstanding. We had this thing called a flan, which was more like a big poofy gratin, essentially, that we would make to order with. That was our vegetarian entree, which was like tons of spinach and custard and whatever seasonal vegetable it was. So like roasted cherry tomatoes.
To be a gratin, doesn't it have to have cheese?
Oh, yeah. It had lots of cheese.
Well, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Well, hey.
So depending on what it was, like we would do a corn one with white cheddar in the summer and we'd do roasted shallot in the winter with Gruyere.
I'm coming in for that one.
I know, it's really good. It was a huge favorite and it took way too long to make in a restaurant. It's a great thing to make at home because each little one would take like 40 minutes in the oven. And it's kind of souffle-like, but it's not as precious as a souffle.
How do you get average home cooks to try some? I mean, you say souffle, and I think I'm a good home cook, but I throw my hands up and say, no way. How do you get those of us who like to cook to show a little more cojones?
I shame them into doing it, I would say. You're like, why not? My last book, Sunlight Breadcrumbs, sort of talks about that, where as adults, much like as adults that claim to be bad artists or can't draw or fill in the blank, we just like kind of start making new rules for ourselves as adults, or we're more worried about failing. And so we just don't try. Kids obviously don't give a shit. And they're just like, I'm going to draw. I can draw. I'm going to make a house. It doesn't look like a house, but I don't care. As a cook, like it's the same thing.
And we'll be right back.
I make things all the time and I'm like, well, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I'm proud of the fact that if I invite you over for dinner, it's possible I'm going to serve you something I never made before.
Yeah, I love it.
I do have that gene.
There we go. I oftentimes am testing out ideas on people, not because I think it's fun. I just think like, oh, I'll try this.
Yeah, well, hold on. You're a James Beard award-winning chef. You can try out ideas without scaring me, okay?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Come to my house, it's more of a risk. Okay, 10 years at this restaurant. A gentleman who will become one of your future business partners walks in. As he tells the story, you aren't answering his phone call. So like he came in to accost you and you agree to open a place together called the Walrus and the Carpenter. And as I read a description, this is where you, quote, championed oyster farmers. Accurate?
Correct. It's a tiny little oyster bar in Ballard. When you walk in, the first thing you're going to see is this corner of the bar that has big baskets of oysters piled with ice and is like literally middle of the dining room. I had been traveling to France as, education essentially.
Yeah, that's what you tell the IRS.
Yeah, well, someone has to do it, right?
It's a tough job.
I would just see all these oysters everywhere on the street and in front of every bistro and whatever, and would then come back to Seattle and know that we grew some of the best oysters in the world, and we didn't really have a culture like that. And it made me sad that there wasn't, simple places or just like casual places where you could go and get fresh oysters other than, like in a steakhouse. And so that was sort of the reason why I wanted to open Walrus, was to have that be the focus.
I'm looking at your menu, and unlike so many places, unless I'm wrong, all of your oysters are local.
Yes.
You're not flying them in from Prince Edward Island.
No, we buy some oysters from Island Creek when our water temperatures get hot here in the summer.
Where's Island Creek?
Island Creek's in Duxbury, Massachusetts.
So you will if you have to.
Yeah, we will if we have to. But we spent probably 11 years of Walrus. It turned 16 this summer, never buying oysters from anywhere but in the region here.
Where I live on the Jersey Shore, we have great local oysters. And it cracks me up. I go into a place and the cheap oysters, the buck of shucks during happy hour, are the locals. And the stuff that got flown in is, $2 or $3 a piece. And I'm thinking, why would you want the less fresh oyster and pay more for it? It doesn't make any sense.
I think there's like I would say this about salmon too, where there's like this idea that you need to have things from everywhere to make people happy, or I don't know. I am the exact opposite. I don't want stuff from elsewhere.
Do you think the average consumer can tell, local and seasonal is the big thing?
Sure.
Can most folks tell?
I think people that really pay attention, yes. I mean, I think even just in the species difference, like East Coast oysters are Virginicas and West Coast are Pacific, Gygus oysters. They look different.
And they're both better than Gulf oysters.
There's now good Gulf oysters too. Oyster farming in the last 15, 16 years has changed dramatically and for the better, which is awesome. If you want a really, really, really salty, briny oyster, you're better off wanting to eat an East Coast oyster because they're grown in the ocean, and where ours are grown in a sea, which has a lot more freshwater runoff. So the brininess is less, although there are cases where it's case by case, basically. But I think some care and can tell, and some, of course, just want to eat a lot of oysters.
Let me push the Delaware Bays out where I am. They're very good.
Yeah.
Okay, so that place is still going.
Yep.
At what point did your business partner say, hey, let's become this massive restaurant empire?
Chad Dale, my partner, and he and his other partners for the development company bought another building. They asked if we wanted to open a restaurant in that. And so this was 3 years after Walrus, and we opened Whale Winds, which sadly we just closed last year, which is a real heartbreak.
Why'd you close it?
Because it kept losing money year over year.
But that's where you won the James Beard Award, Best Chef.
Pacific Northwest, yeah. It was a brilliant spot. I loved it so much. It was my favorite.
What kind of food you do there?
Right in the middle of the restaurant was a big wood-fired oven, and so we would do all of our meats and vegetables and everything were roasted in the oven. I called it kind of British-ish influenced in that, not the wood part, but backing up another, 13, 14 years ago, the restaurant group in London called Ottolenghi had these big, giant, beautiful piles of prepared foods and vegetables and things that would then become part of other dishes. It was like very Mediterranean. It was that kind of concept. So lots of vegetables, and then any protein or anything that we were going to sell was going to get cooked in the wood oven. So I loved that restaurant so much. And I think it was just Seattle. Tough times here.
But Open Fire Cooking's having a moment.
Yeah. I think Seattle's a small town when it comes right down to it. And we have a lot of restaurants. And what people love more than anything are new ones. And so we cause some of our own pain. And then there's just lots of new things that people want to go to. The ones that have been around for a long time often suffer, which is unfortunate.
Is that the reason why you changed? You had a steakhouse, Bateau. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Bateau, yep.
And you shut it down and reopened it as Jeffrey's?
We did. We were trying to sell it to the two coworkers that had been running it. That didn't happen. And during the 2.5 years of us negotiating the sale, it started to lose money as well. So it was progressively getting slower and doing less sales, and our costs were going up.
Was part of your financial problem that you were only selling ethically raised heritage breed beef?
I mean, that could be our whole company problem. Yes, we had a business that I think was brilliant, and Taylor, our chef, was really fantastic and managed a project that was maybe impossible to do well for a really long time with problems that, obvious problems.
But you've reopened a steakhouse.
Yeah, we reopened a steakhouse, but we're not doing the same, it's not as intense of a program. Like we only brought in, for the most part, whole cows.
And now you're not doing that anymore.
No, we're bringing in primal. So we're bringing in bigger pieces. We're still butchering in-house, but we have way less waste and we're still buying from similar farms. We've expanded and we are buying from kind of not commodity beef, but we're buying, from bigger farms.
That raises the question. There are people who say fine dining is dying.
Mm-hmm.
The price of everything you sell has gone up.
Yeah, insane.
Operators all across the country say they're meeting price resistance.
Yep.
And it's a tough business. Are you confronting the reality that there's only so much fine dining you can sell people?
I don't think it's even fine dining. Anything in the middle, I think, is what's going to suffer. Fine dining, to a certain extent, will probably survive easier than the corner restaurant that's like a bistro trying to bridge it's not counter service and it's not fine dining.
So it's going to lose to Chipotle's, to fast casuals?
I think so, yeah. I think we're in for it. And I think Seattle's kind of the canary in the coal mine for it all. Now, our labor and everything's been going up much faster than the rest of the country. The rest of the country's kind of catching up, but much slower than we are. And everyone in Seattle is talking about the challenges of not being able to be profitable anymore. I have 10 restaurants and 2 of ours are, and the rest are just either losing money or barely breaking even.
Well, do you hold on to 10 restaurants at that point?
That's why we closed Whale. We've closed 3 of our donut shops.
Wait. Fine dining, I get, but why are you closing donut shops?
Same reason. No one walks in. You can't sell enough. And we have too many, frankly. And I think that's a thing that exists in Seattle. We have a culture that kind of goes to bed in the winter and then comes out in the spring. And if we could all be seasonal and not pay rent, half the year, it would be fine. But
what's the sweet spot? What do people want to eat? What do people want to pay? I mean, you've got a pizza by the slice shop.
Yeah.
Is it doing okay?
Yeah. I mean, I can run it with 2 people.
Okay. You got some bars offering limited menus. Are those doing okay?
Do you want me to go through my P&Ls with you or what do you like?
I'm sorry. It's
okay. I mean, nothing's doing okay in Seattle, I would say. Walrus and the Carpenter still has really great sales. But I think the problem with all of that is the dynamic fabric and culture of cities, I say, are arguably built by small restaurants kind of scattered all over the place. Small restaurants, coffee shops, wine shops, bookstores, all these things that are like individual and unique to the place. And those are the ones, unless they're a home run, which Walrus is, thankfully, they're suffering. Every single one of ours is. That's not either brand new or counter service. And even then, it's not like we're making money. We're just not losing tons of it.
I've taken you down this very depressing rat hole.
I know, right?
Tell me something positive. What's good about the business? What are you optimistic about looking forward? I mean, you're this huge success, and here I've got you talking about, financial trouble.
Sure. The secret of it all, I think, is that we're selling a space, like a restorative space by definition, right? A restaurant that's supposed to make you feel good and escape from your life. And that's largely what we still are doing. It's just behind the curtain is panic. And I think that's hard to not have kind of seep throughout everything you do. But what's good still? I mean, I think Seattle is, the community of restaurants is tight and trying to figure out how to figure it out. We have an amazing network of local farmers, I think, that are working hard to make beautiful things. Like our farmers markets are amazing. I went last weekend and got stopped 3 times from farmers that I've bought from forever. And they're just like, are you guys okay? Are you going to make it? And I'm just like, it sucks. Restaurants are really in a bad spot, which of course puts them in a bad spot because we buy a ton of local product, as does so many restaurants here in the Northwest that really are proud to support local produce. Genuinely, I think people want our restaurants to survive. I just think it's so complicated. It's not just one thing anymore. We have inflation, we have gas that's crazy expensive, which now purveyors are going to charge us, our minimums are going up. So if you don't hit the minimums, you can't really get stuff delivered. So you're going to run out of stuff and you're just scrambling constantly. And I think Seattle also has a real big challenge of perceived safety around all the stuff that has happened in the last 5 years. And we have a really big unhoused population that the city's working hard to try to manage and find homes for, but it all impacts businesses. And, we have a police force that's, I think, I don't know, half of what it was. And every restaurant gets broken into all the time and you don't call the police because there's no one comes. And I think we all kind of thought that the pandemic was bad and this is way worse.
I have had other chefs tell me, look, this is a resilient business. We've seen lousy times before.
Mm-hmm.
And we survive. Do you share their optimism? I hope, because I've depressed the hell out of you.
Yeah. I mean, I have to kind of live in that place, right? Because not only my livelihood, but I have 150 employees' livelihoods that survive on it. Are we going to be this big in a year? I don't know. Probably not.
But you will still have whatever shape of company. I mean, right now you have 2 very successful restaurants and you have challenges with others.
Yeah.
So do you focus more energy on the places that are doing well?
Yes and no. I mean, I think you have to focus on all of them, right? Because we have leases in all these locations and we have people that want attention from us, that need attention and need help. We have a big group of support of management that does really help the restaurants. Compared to owning a restaurant on your own, this is such a dreamy experience to have an HR director and a director of hospitality who can help you sort out your POS or whatever. Whereas when you're a single restaurateur, they're doing it all on their own, which is really hard. We are poking holes in everything to see how we can be better and more efficient and figure out ways to get people in the door. I mean, thankfully, the sun's out in Seattle now, and it will be out probably till the end of September.
What about the satisfaction, I would even use the word joy, of making people happy with the food you give them? How big a motivation is that?
Oh, massively. I think that's the only reason we keep doing it, right? We just did a event last night that's a fundraiser called Oyster Fest that supports an organization that's called Oceans Initiative, and they basically do science research around saving the southern and resident orca whales and then other species in the Salish Sea. And that's largely the joy of not only this event, but just the reason to have restaurants is to see your guests happy, particularly now in a world that's really challenging everyone to be happy, to have glimmers of joy and happiness around, eating oysters with farmers and raising money. That's the best part. And hearing stories and people coming to the restaurants for birthdays and things like that. That's the whole point of it, to create a space that people want to be in for whatever the reason, whether it's a date or celebration of some sort, or even just a hard day where you're just I just want to go somewhere where I feel good.
You have to be a people pleaser to do this?
You have to care about people. I don't know that you have to be a pleaser. And I think you have to care about the definition of hospitality, which is whatever your style is, a kind place and a genuine place where people can come in and feel like they're getting a great experience. It doesn't have to be caviar. It could be a ham sandwich. I just think the experience should be genuine and warm so that, when I leave, I'm that was nice. I want to go back.
Well, but it's interesting. It doesn't have to be fan. One of the things I liked about Pete Wells during his tenure as the New York Times food critic was that he evaluated restaurants on the promise they made. So a hamburger joint could get 3 stars,
sure,
or a ramen joint could get 3 stars if it was the best hamburger place or the best ramen.
Yeah.
You look at these best restaurant in the world rankings, and every one of them is a $300 a head tasting menu. That's not how people want to eat.
I don't want to eat that. No. I feel trapped when I'm in those places.
Yeah.
I'm held hostage for 4 hours. I'm just God, get me out of here.
You think Americans are getting more food conscious, more adventurous?
Yeah. I mean, I can only speak to, the West Coast or the coasts, I would say, and Chicago. But yeah, I have friends that have restaurants in kind of all over the country. And I don't know that it's blanketed everywhere, but I think there's enough curious people. I mean, I think maybe one of the great things of the pandemic was that it kind of scattered people around the nation into cities and even rural areas where they want they got used to having nice wine and well-made things or local ingredients, and now it's kind of everywhere. There's room for more, I would say, and I think there's definitely room for more for grocery stores and places like that to kind of get on board with caring about what we're selling. People want to eat better. Now it's just the financial crunch that everyone's faced with. You're not going to go buy organic ground beef if you can't put gas in your car. It's practicality more than it is what you want to do, and that makes me sad because basically this is a country with mountains of money and it's not being shared in the way that I think it should be. But that's a bigger problem.
It is. What are you looking forward to? A new dish at one of your restaurants?
Tomatoes. Yeah. End of July is what I'm looking forward to. Maybe one of the best reinforcements of what I do is seasonality and kind of that pure happiness that comes with whatever is actually being brought to the market. Like right now we have morel mushrooms.
Yeah, we're talking in the third week in May.
Yeah.
You've got mushrooms. You're looking forward to tomato. By the way, the best tomatoes are here in Jersey.
That's what I hear. You're right. But I'll take mine because they're from here. We have, the market. I think that's probably the happiest place right now for me is just to walk through the market and see what are people pulling out of the ground. I mean, it's like turnips and green garlic and spring onions and lots of like mizuna and mustard greens and strawberries, peas. That fills me up with like hope, even though if I read the paper, I'm horrified.
But if you have a real in-season fresh strawberry, that'll take some of the sting.
Oh my God. Well, and I bought the last 2 pints at one of the farms that we love is called Tana Makers. And they had to, like it's so sad when you see, especially when it's a new thing, like everyone just like bombs the stand to get it early. He had this big table with just 2 pints of strawberries left. I picked them up and she's like, oh, thank God you bought them both, And I'm just like, well, of course, I'm not going to leave one little pint there.
One lonely
pint. And we ate them all within, 2 hours of getting them home because they were so delicious. And I think it's one of those things where you're like, I have not had a good strawberry in 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, probably. A good experiment for everyone would be to do that. Don't eat it unless you can buy it at your farmer's market. Just pick one thing, give it a go for a whole year, like live without strawberries until spring. And all of a sudden you'll understand why your strawberries at the store are so crap because they don't taste like anything. But yeah, strawberries are making me happy right now. And the future of insane tomatoes with my favorite tomato mayonnaise sandwich.
White bread?
I don't care. I like it all. I'm a big tartine fan too. So like I'll just toast and mayonnaise and sliced tomato and then it doesn't squish out, which is why you need the white bread. So it doesn't squish out.
Okay, I could do that.
You'll suffer through it.
Chef, despite the talk about the tough times in the restaurant biz, it's great chatting with you.
Yeah, this was fun.
I'm so impressed by what you've done over the years.
Thanks.
So, Chef, I want everyone in Seattle to come visit your restaurants.
Come by to mine, but also come by to everyone that you love, that you want to have stay. Seattle's not unique in this case, but restaurants are deeply challenged. And, if you want them to be here in a few years, please support as many as you can because it's really important.
Chef, thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. It was really, really wonderful to chat with you. And, I hope everyone that is here in Seattle or anywhere in the country that loves the restaurants to go support them because they need it right now.
Renee Erickson on Culinary Characters on Lock. I'm David Page. I'll see you next time.